Hi there! Welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Urbinary. My name is Giulia and today Maya and I will be chatting with Reza Shirazi. Reza is a reader in sustainable urban design and development at the School of the Built Environment, Oxford Brookes University, and a visiting professor at the Department of Architecture and Urban Studies at Politecnico di Milano. He has worked on various topics such as citizen participation, neighborhood development, phenomenology of the built environment, socio-cultural sustainability, architectural and urban transformation in the MENA countries, and finally, urban justice and environmental justice, which is the theme of today's episode.
Urbinary.
Reza Shirazi is an urban planner and documentary film director. In his film Never Surrenders, he narrates the community's fight for environmental justice and documents the conflict between the people and the government over the safety of the shipyard in San Francisco Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood. It was a former military base that came contaminated during and after World War II, and after was found to have falsified data. As a result, San Francisco's largest redevelopment project became the largest eco-fraud case in US history. And this documentary is one aspect of many different aspects of environmental justice that we want to better understand today. Hi Raza, and thanks for being with us. Now, to get into our main topic, which is environmental injustice, I'll turn it over to Maya.
Urbinary.
Hello, Reza. Thank you for joining us. To get into our main topic, we live in a time when everyone is more or less familiar with terms like climate change. While an important issue, environmental justice has remained in the shadows. Could you give us a simple description along with the background of this important issue?
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. Environmental justice is more about environmental injustice, basically. Of course, we talk about justice, but when we go to the cases that are subject to the topic of environmental justice, these are the cases that are in extreme cases of injustices that have happened in these cases. But the core idea of environmental justice is that environmental bads and environmental harms are disproportionately distributed, and disadvantaged communities or the communities that are not well off are suffering more from the environmental bads and environmental harms. They are more exposed to the environmental problems. About the history of this idea, environmental justice really emerged from in the U.S., in the United States, around 1980s. So it's quite new topic, relatively new topic, and was heavily influenced by the American civil rights movement that happened in 1960s. And also at the beginning, it was more about environmental racism. The fact that marginalized racial communities are more exposed to environmental harms than other communities. For example, one of the early reports that was published and was also really one of the main reference points for environmental justice was a study that was conducted, and it showed that in the U.S., the communities of with minorities, for example, Black African Americans or Latinos, they are geographically located closer to the places that are, for example, contaminated, the places on heavily industrial places that are producing waste and other things. So it shows that geographically they are located in the places that have environmental problems and environmental issues. And of course, later, environmental justice also was expanded to include ideas and around gender, around ethnicity, and also around economic inequalities. One important thing is that we should not delimit environmental justice to distributional justice. Here is an interesting point. I just want to mention, of course, justice has different meanings and different definitions. But when we talk about environmental justice, we should have kind of comprehensive understanding from environmental justice. I want to familiarize you with three concepts of justice. One is distributional justice, and distributional justice means that is about equal distribution of public goods and public services. For example, when we talk in urban planning context, that means that all the communities and all the people from different ethnicity, from different economic background, should have equal access to the basic public services. So this is distributional justice. That means that everything should be equally distributed in the built environment. But the other thing, and this is a very dominant concept. When we talk about justice, normally we go for distributional justice. But there are also two other aspects of justice are also very important. One is procedural justice. That means that all the communities from different social background, ethnic background, should have also equal access to the decision-making processes. So it's more about participation. They should also have equal right to participate in the city making. So this is what we call procedural justice. And the other thing is recognition justice. And it means that all the communities, again from different backgrounds, cultural, social, and ethnical backgrounds, should also be recognized as part of the society and should have also rights. And then with all the differences, we should appreciate the differences, but at the same time give them equal right to participate. So when we talk about environmental justice, we normally should talk about all of them. That means that, of course, we should recognize that people are different and then help them to contribute to the decision-making processes. And finally, everything should be equally distributed. And then this is more comprehensive understanding from environmental justice that we should also take into consideration.
Thank you. We know that climate change is no longer a prediction, and actually we are already experiencing it, and some parts of the world are facing its extreme version. While searching for the interview, I came across the term climate refugees. Many experts claim that climate change may cause the largest migration of people in the history of our planet. To what extent do you agree? How prepared are we for it?
Basically, I believe climate change and climate justice is also an environmental justice issue. Because I believe that disadvantaged communities all over the world are again more exposed to the dangers of climate change and are really suffering more than others from the consequences of climate change. Just look at, for example, hurricanes as an example. Just look at who is suffering more from the hurricanes when it is happening. These disadvantaged people are more likely that are located very close to the risky areas. And then, for example, when a hurricane happens, then they are also more suffering from the consequences. And of course, everybody is suffering from them. But those who are well off, those who are more wealthy, of course, they can manage themselves. But for the really disadvantaged community, it's going to be more critical and more crucial. And again, climate refuge is also more about poor people, the disadvantaged people, because they are also living in the most, as I said, in the most risky areas and are more vulnerable, basically. Are we prepared? Of course, not 100%. And we are doing something, for example, from the politicians' side up to the academia, and everybody is talking about climate change and also minimizing the dangers of climate change, and all these things are happening. And of course, we are really at the beginning. There are some very minor interventions, minor national, international programs, but it is very politicized. So this is one of the negative things that I would want to mention it. Just look at how politicians are dealing with climate justice, climate change issues. When they want to make a global decision in the United Nations, for example, and other places, of course, they take into consideration their national benefits, and also they take into consideration their political position as well. So, I mean, for them, of course, they might claim that climate change is very important. But in reality, of course, the way that they are dealing with it is very limited by their political agenda as well. So this is really one thing, that the politicizing all these environmental facts is really a big problem. overall, I would argue that what we need to do is that we need to go towards a more equal world, that inequalities are really minimal, are reducing very much. Of course, small interventions are also important, but as long as the divide between the poor and the wealthy is growing, which we are witnessing in the current situation as well, we will not end up with a comprehensive solution to the climate change. And just coming back to the climate refugees, just compare climate refugee with other types of refugees, for example. Let's get the example of the war refugees. Okay, all these wealthy countries, powerful countries, are creating wars. Just look at what happened in Iraq. Look at what happened in Afghanistan, or later in Syria. They are creating wars, and then, of course, people escape from their countries, and then they need to deal with the consequences of these wars and refugees, and also just see all the discussions that are happening right now in Europe by the waves of the refugees that are coming. It's very similar to the climate change as well. Wealthy countries, powerful countries are making more harms to the environment, are the main reasons of climate injustice and climate change, but they don't take responsibility for that. And of course, these climate refugees, which are right now happening, but I believe that in the future it's going to be growing and make a big problem. And then they need also take responsibility for that, and then there is consequences for that, and of course, the climate refugee is going to be a big issue in the very close future.
Where do you see the planners in the environmental justice scenario? As you know, in some cases, we can actually cause injustice.
Yeah, this is really very important question, and this is something that I really deal with it in my teachings, and always highlight the importance of planners, and also the significant role that planners are playing in this regard. Of course, planning and planners have contributed to the urban problems. This is what I believe. What we see in the world is the result of really planning. Even, for example, when in my lectures and courses, we talk about informal settlements, for example. But what I want to make the students also aware is that we say that informal settlements are a problem, but they are also the result of planning in general. Because when the planning as a discipline is not sufficient, then people also need to do their own things and create this what they call informal settlements. We see it as a problem, but the problem is really the planning. When the planning is not working, when planning is not functioning, then people are creative. They need to be creative and create their own solutions for the problems. So urban planning, what you see in most of the cities are also as urban problems, basically as a result of urban planning scenarios and urban planning programs very often. And planners by themselves are also part of the problem, I believe. They used to see themselves as savers, as knowledge holders, as the officers, or as the people who have the solutions. But you can see, if you look at the history of urban planning, is more about history of all the failures. And of course, a little bit success stories we can also find. But just look at the urban planning, modern urban planning system of all these suburbanizations and also urban renewal programs. So all these things are also, there are also a lot of failures and failures stories. And all these things are really based on the planning and also the planners. What I want to say is that the planners have also contributed mainly to the problems. They wanted to solve them, but they have also probably created more problems than solving the issues. I believe the planners should change their position in the way that they are dealing with the communities, and also they need to have a very different understanding from their discipline. Unfortunately, most of the planning schools are just practicing the old-fashioned planning system, and they are following the old-fashioned understanding from planners. Planners are as officers and officials that are part of the authorities, and they are the decision makers. They know the problems. They can analyze everything. They can come up with great ideas. But I believe this is the old-fashioned way of doing the things. The planners should be learned to be socially sensitive and socially responsible, and recognizing the communities, and coming down from their offices, going into the neighborhoods, going to the places of problems, negotiating with the people, and serving more as a facilitator than as the decision maker, and to see and listen to the people, and then co-create and co-design solutions based on the communities. So this is how it should be changed. But how far we are in this position to change the planning as a discipline, and also planners as as administrative officers, I believe still we need a lot to do to change this position of the officer, of the planners, and of our understanding from the role of the planners in the process of city making.
We have talked about what is happening or what the possible solution may be. But do you have any successful project in mind where environmental justice has been successfully considered?
As I said, environmental justice is basically about environmental injustice. It is difficult to talk about success stories because it was generated. This idea was generated and developed because there was a problem there, and there was environmental inequalities happening there. They created this idea and developed it just to address inequalities. So it is more about, I can't say unfortunately, but it's more about the bad stories, sad stories, and very complicated cases where environmental inequalities have been a rooted practice, urban practice there. And so I can list a lot of bad practices of environmental injustice, but good practices probably are but it's not really the case that we study. We look at the injustices, environmental injustices. Let me just briefly mention the case of there is a case that I have studied in my work. From 2018 and to 2020, I was at UC Berkeley to study environmental justice issues around a neighborhood, previously dominantly Black African American neighborhood in San Francisco called Bayview Hunters Point. And if you look at this case, which is, I believe, one of the good cases. Of course, good is not the right word here. One of the environmental justice cases that definitely is nationally and internationally considerable. And to make very long story short is that this neighborhood is a disadvantaged neighborhood in San Francisco. It used to be a dominantly Black African American, but recently the profile has changed, the demographic has changed. But anyway, there has been a lot of injustices in this neighborhood all over the world, all over the recent decades. And there is a naval site here, a shipyard here next to the neighborhood, which was very active during the Second World War. And as the result of these activities, it was very much contaminated, radioactively and chemically contaminated. But when from 1990s, this site, which was dysfunctioning, was empty, the city decided to develop this land. There were two things to do. One is developing it, and they are also planning to create a huge development there, which is considered the biggest development in San Francisco. They are going to build, for example, 12,000 condos and residential units alongside all other offices, hotels, and other things. But this land, because it is contaminated, it needs to be decontaminated and cleaned up. And from 1990s, the Navy was responsible for cleaning this land. And they had plans to clean up the land. And a lot of things has happened. So I have made also a film which is called Never Surrender, which is all the struggle of the community for fighting against environmental justice that they are facing and they are experiencing. But the struggle for environmental justice in this case have been very significant and very important. And if you look at this story, of this film, it is about how community members have organized themselves to claim their rights, of course, and also to show that all these decontamination activities that are happening there have problems. They are exposing these community members to the environmental hazards, to environmental harms, and also the people in this community are also very much suffering from this environmental justice issues that are happening around this new development.
Good that you mentioned your documentary. Actually, in this podcast, we are trying to make awareness of urban planning and urban issues by making it more easy and understandable. And my question is, have you made this documentary in order to make it more easy for ordinary people to understand it, or is it a medium that you used because you were interested in filmmaking?
Yeah, actually, it is both of them. Of course, I am not a documentary filmmaking, but I have made one. But why I did it? Because I was also fascinated by the power of documentary. And I used to watch different documentaries, and also some of them related to urban issues. I was aware of the power of documentary filmmaking. And also, this is why when I decided to do this research, I put in the proposal, because we normally make a proposal and it should be accepted and it should be funded. So I proposed making a documentary around the issue that I am studying. And then when I went there and started looking at the case, and of course, it is a live project. That means that it is happening right now. And then I need to engage with the case, go to the site, go to the community meeting, go to the protest. So because when I arrived there, it was really the time that this fraud that I'm talking in the film, it came to the public. So the people were very angry. They organized themselves. They did a lot of protests. So I was there and started filming them. And I believe the documentary or video basically, and also but the documentary as well, is powerful tool from two perspectives. One is for doing research. We can think a little bit out of box, because going out of these ordinary ways of and research methods that we normally do, like observing, like interviewing people, like looking at archival material. So these aren't what we normally as urban researchers do. But you can also use the video, the medium of video, for doing the research. For example, going and filming the events and interviewing people, and also going to protests and filming them. So this could be as the way of data collection, let's say. You can visually collect data and then use it and to try to make sense from out of this data. So this is one aspect of it, documentary or video as a research tool to collect data. But the other thing is that you can also look at documentary film as an output. Okay, again, what we do as the classical way of doing research is that we publish, for example, journal articles, what we call it peer review journal articles. So, of course, I don't want to, undervalue these peer review journal articles, but these are really, the target is for, again, academics. Nobody reads them except academics for reading and referencing. But it has nothing to do with community. I believe, let's also talk about another aspect, interesting one. When we, as urban planners and urban researchers, when we go to the communities and probably more disadvantaged communities, places that there are urban problems and you want to investigate them, you go there, you collect data, you interview people, you do a lot of observations, and also you get knowledge from the community members. Basically what we do is that we're collecting what they have already produced. We just take them to our offices and then produce books and journal articles, which really many of them have no impact on the society. And there is an ethical issue here. This is very important. The ethical issue is that, okay, you are learning from the community what you are going to give them back in return. This is an ethical issue. You're learning from them. Then you have a responsibility to give something back to them. And I believe that making a documentary, if it is about the community, for example, in our case, in my case, the fight of the community for their rights, and you are recording them, you're making a film, and then this is their stories, their very first-hand stories. And you make a documentary, and of course you are spreading their word all over the world. For example, in my case, I have screened this film more than 35 different cities and countries, different events worldwide, coming from Canada to South Africa to Romania, everywhere. And I am very, very pleased when I take this documentary film and to different locations, and we watch together and discuss them. And then we also understand their struggle for environmental justice is a global struggle. Similar stories are happening all over the world, here in Milan, in other places. And then people start to associate with them and also sympathize with them. And it makes me ethically, let's say, more comfortable that I have learned from them, but I'm also helping them by just spreading their words. And this is probably something that they can't do but I have. It is within my ability and my power to do it. And so this is why I believe documentary film is also important. What I'm doing here in Polytechnic this semester is that, as you mentioned, I am the 2023 visiting professor here, teaching contemporary cities. And I said that, okay, let's also integrate this documentary element to studying urban cities worldwide. This is why I proposed the idea of contemporary cities in and through documentary film. And our sessions were around one topic, and we watched films related to the topics, documentary films, very famous documentary films. And also we discussed topics, we discussed the film. But more importantly, I also asked the students to create a film, to make a documentary film, which is also, again, a little bit out of box. This is not something that we normally do in urban planning. We normally ask them to do reports, to do posters in architecture, urban planning, and this kind of stuff. But they have created films, and today, in the afternoon, this is the film screening event, and they have produced 12 really brilliant films. I watched all of them yesterday, and I am really proud of them because they have created brilliant films without having most of them or many of them having really no knowledge about video making and video editing. But I mean it is possible to use this medium, and it is doable, and you can do it in a semester. And this case also showed me that it is really possible. So I'm thinking of just to develop further how to integrate filmmaking and video making into the teaching stuff. And this is one of the things that I will work on that in the future.
Urbinary.
Thank you so much for this interview. And as a conclusion, we would like to ask some questions that we ask to everyone. And basically, we want to understand what is a city for you now, but also what it should be in the future.
Yeah, very, very briefly, I have to say that, of course, I am advocating inclusive, equal, and diverse societies. So I believe this is the nature of the cities, or probably it is not yet the nature of the cities, but it is the true nature of the cities, to have societies that are inclusive, that are equal, and also at the same time they are diverse. And I believe that we need to move towards this kind of environment, to make the cities inclusive, to make the cities more equal and accessible for all the people from different socio-cultural and political backgrounds, and also make it diverse. So diverse societies, I am in favor of diverse societies. And unfortunately, these urban inequalities are omnipresent, so they are everywhere. And we also really need to deal with the growing urban inequalities, and also just develop ideas and make programs, and nationally, locally, nationally, and probably internationally, to deal with the growing urban inequalities. But inclusive, equal, and diverse societies should be should be basically the future of all the cities all around the world.
Okay, and in this setting that you just described us, what do you think will be our role as young professional and young urban planners?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned that the planners are playing a key role in this regard. But as I said again, we need a positional change in the way that planners think and practice, basically. The task of planning and planners should change to accommodate principles of equality, principles of democracy, and also inclusiveness into their practices. And also they should move away from being part of the problem making or the part of the institution and avoid serving wheels of the powerful. They need to come to the communities. They need to change their position or their positionality, saying that we no longer should be part of the system necessarily, or we should bring ourselves close to the communities, start to talk to them, to understand them in a very respectful manner, and also co-design and co-develop and co-create ideas for the communities, not just sitting in offices and also serving a political agenda that are coming from top, but going to somehow or contributing to a bottom-up process of decision making and city making that the ideas comes from the communities, and this is something that the planners should basically do. And in a nutshell, they need to be socially responsible, and they put the communities first, not the politicians and not the local authorities or national authorities. And there is another important thing I need to mention. The planners should also be ethically responsible in the way that if they feel that the ideas that they are developing or they are being asked to develop is not serving the communities, and they are ethically responsible to step down and don't contribute to this top-down decision-making processes that have really little benefit for the communities. This is an ethical responsibility, and this is very important. But in many cases, we hear from the planners, officers in planning departments saying that, okay, this is the decision that has been already made, or this is a decision that the mayor has already promised in the campaign. All these are excuses, are not acceptable. You are dealing with people, and then you need to see the people, to put the people and the communities first. If you believe that what you are doing or what you have been asked to do is serving the communities, of course, it is ethically okay to continue that. But if you are not comfortable with that, or you believe that it's not going to serve the communities, it is your ethical responsibility. We are ethically responsible just to not accept it and not to be part of this machinery of decision making, top-down decision making.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And it looks a very great program, and also good luck with your podcast.
Thanks again, Reza and Maya. This is Urbinary, a collaboration with Poliradio. Today, along with Professor Reza, we are concluding the first season of Urbinary. It has been a beautiful journey where we have delved into various topics related to our urban environment, examine them from different perspectives, presented by the experts we have the privilege of hosting in each episode. We aspire to have enlarged your awareness of the complexity of urban planning as a multifaceted subject encompassing social, economical, and political aspects. Above all, our aim is to have equipped you with the tools to engage as citizens in shaping the cities you call home and the surrounding environment. There is still much more to explore and discuss, and we hope continuing to produce engaging conversations with numerous other experts. This discussion will not only nurture your curiosity, but also offer diverse viewpoints to help you gaining a deeper understanding of the intricacies of everyday life in our urban surroundings.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.